Kia ora everyone, happy Friday. As we wrap the week up, I thought I would dive into a couple comments on one of my recent videos. So let's get into it. Now, before we start, I love your comments. I literally get my best ideas and content from you, from the questions that you ask, from the comments that you post. So thank you all so much for going on this journey with me. All right, first comment. This came on my recent video on how I think you could use PowerFX functions to make Dataverse MCP endlessly extensible. And they've said, great idea. They like the practical approach, but don't you think code-based actions could be more preferred by users? You'd probably be able to execute Python code directly, which would make things even more powerful. All right, let me say this. In the low-code, pro-code debate, when it comes to performance, when it comes to capability, when it comes to flexibility, there is no contest. Pro code wins every single time, right? Pro code is always going to be more performant, more flexible, and more capable than low code. It just is. But pro code requires that you have people who know how to use it, how to create it, write it, compile it, maintain it, all that good stuff. With now, you can argue that GitHub Copilot starts to make that more accessible to other people, but the reality is that low code is always going to be just more accessible than pro code will be. And so my thinking was that low code in the form of PowerFX functions is quite powerful and would let you do pretty much anything you wanted to do. Now, you are absolutely right that Python code is always going to be more capable than PowerFX when depending on what you want to do. But my thinking was, if assuming you didn't have access to people who could develop Python pro code devs, then PowerFX functions make a really compelling argument. But great comment. Always happy to dive into this low code pro code. I don't know if debate's the right word, but back and forth. Okay, next comment. This is also on my recent video for PowerFX functions and using them to extend Dataverse MCP. I really question the added value of Copilot Studio in general. Why would you replace workflows that were done using Power Automate with an unreliable AI agent, e.g. look up customer, call the correct tool, call the correct follow-up agent and flow? Okay. Firstly, I would love to understand what you mean by unreliable AI agent. What I think you mean, and the working definition that I'm going to use for my response is when you are working with deterministic workflows, so traditional workflows, we've always known it, Power Automate, logic apps, and all that stuff, there really is no question about what's going to happen. We know exactly what's going to happen with that automation before we ever build it, right? We know that we need a record, we know that we need an integer, and so before we ever build it, we know exactly what it's going to do. And it's going to do the same exact thing in the same exact way every single time, because that's the way deterministic workflow works. When we move into the world of AI automation, this is different because you've got a large language model that is evaluating unstructured data, which means we might get a different response every time. We hope that it would look at, say, a big block of text, an email, some set of unstructured data, determine what needs to happen and pull the right parameters out every time, but it doesn't always do that. Now, you could argue, why would we use this instead of a human? Well, humans are kind of the same, right? We tend to be fairly unpredictable as well. But effectively, AI automation and traditional deterministic automation, traditional workflow, are basically doing kind of different things. And this is the automation paradigm that I've put together to try and understand this. So when we already know what to do, that's the world of traditional automation, Power Automate. So I am not suggesting replacing that by any stretch of the imagination, right? I don't want an AI agent running payroll. I want that to be done by traditional deterministic workflow where it's going to do the same thing every time to make sure that I get paid the correct amount on the correct date, right? I don't want an agent interpreting that. So when we know what to do, this is the world of traditional workflow and automation. But when we need to decide what to do, this is the world of autonomous agents. So We ingest a large block of unstructured data. We get an email. We have um, documents or other text that we need to review. We need to determine what's going on and then make decisions about what needs to happen. That's where we use an agent. And then we hand off to traditional automation to do the doing. So the agent makes decisions. The agent can ingest that data, that text, and determine what's going on, and then make decisions about what needs to happen, what are the parameters, and then it can hand that off to deterministic automation to make sure that the same thing happens the way it's meant to every single time that process runs. And so that's how I think about these things in this world of AI agents. So it's not a question of whether you use autonomous AI or whether you use more traditional workflow like Power Automate. It's really a question of how we put the two together to automate things that we could never do before. And I'm going to leave you with a final question, which is, does Dataverse MCP and the Dynamics 365 MCPs as well, do they reinforce this paradigm or do we need to reconsider it? So I'll just pop up a screenshot again of this paradigm of when we already know what to do, use automation. When we need to decide what to do, use an agent. So what do you think? Does Dataverse MCP reinforce this paradigm or do we need to reconsider it? I need to spend some time thinking about it. Really curious to hear what your thoughts are. All right. That's it from me. Go do something awesome on the Power Platform today, and I'll talk to you all soon.